Guys, I've been kinda hyped for this one, at least more than any other recent series in Weekly Shonen Jump. Now, some of you may be saying, well Crash, wasn't there just a new Jujutsu Kaisen manga that just came out just last week? And to that I ask you to go watch my video on that to know that I'm not a big Jujutsu Kaisen fan, but you know what I'm a big fan of? Shonen rom-coms. One of my very first manga was called Lavina, and Lavina opened the doors for my love of this genre. And I think Weekly Shonen Jump has had its fair share of good shonen rom-coms throughout the years. From stuff like Blue Box, Ichigo 100%, Nisekoi We Never Learn, Ease, even canceled titles like Pajama no Konojo or Lilum Kiss. There's been so many rom-coms in this magazine that I enjoyed. And this new one, Someone Hertz, gave me the vibe that it's going to be somewhat music related, as there was a lot of sound imagery. And if there's any medium that I love as much as manga is music. I'm the kind of guy who has a vinyl collection and that has soundtracks for the blind signed by Jira himself. So, you know, manga nerd, rom-com nerd, music nerd, and I just really loved the art style of this one. This was probably going to be my most positively biased I was into a new manga in a long time. So that begs the question, did it live up to the toxic made-up hype that I made for myself? Well, let's talk about it. Well, first things first, this isn't actually music related at all. All the audio-related imagery is because a central part of this manga is radio, sure, but it's a late-night comedy radio show. Yes, there are some tracks that are name-dropped in here, like for example, Baby Baby by Gingnam Boys, because again, radio-related, and sure, it'll be fun to try to catch names and listen to these songs, but it also made me realize one thing. I don't actually listen to a lot of Japanese artists, and the ones I do, I don't think they'll be in here. Nonetheless, the show, hosted by a popular comedy duo Long Hopes, is called Monday Midnight Talking, or Mon Mid for short, despite airing at 3 AM and not midnight. And it's an improv comedy radio show that includes a segment where listeners can send one-line punchlines to previously given prompts, and the best ones get to be heard on the show, and they even got a keychain. The story revolves around two listeners of this show. The first one is Mime. Mime is the smartest, fastest, coolest guy in the school, and is great at pretty much everything, but there's a big goal of him that is yet to accomplish. Despite spending his days writing answers for the prompts and replying with the couple that he thinks are the best ones, he constantly fails to be featured on the show. To cheer him up is Mizo, a cute short classmate who also loves to listen to a radio show every week. This has become their connection, and she's kind of like the opposite of Mime. She's extremely deadpan, but she's constantly throwing her own one-liner jokes and puns, and she's also quite flirty with him in a very casual, jokey way, which constantly leaves him embarrassed. However, the rumor is that she has a boyfriend because she has matching keychains with someone from another class. That's a rumor that she shuts down pretty fast because, in her own words, she won't fall in love with anyone that isn't funnier than Heel Potato. Heel Potato being a regularly featured user in the show that they both listen to, and someone that is so good that sometimes even featured twice, and it's one person that Mime idolizes a lot. And then she drops the bomb that we kinda all figured out the millisecond she got introduced. She is a Heel Potato. Why did she keep this a secret till now? Well, because Mime liked Heel Potato a bit too much, which, honestly, I get. The next day, I think, Mizu catches Mime writing one-liner jokes for the show and realizes that he actually writes a shit ton of stuff, but only ends up sending one or two, often not even the funniest ones according to her. So she convinced him to send them, all 300 of them to the show, and wait to see if this time, with all of them, they finally pick at least one of his jokes. So on Monday night, as they get ready to listen to the show, Mizu calls Mime and tells him that he's actually outside, and so, despite making him a delinquent, they end up watching the show together in the park at 3 AM in the morning, and they even share a code. If you don't understand how I am invested in seeing these two grow up together and live forever as a happy couple, then honestly, you should just leave now. And then, because the showrunners were incredibly surprised that someone sent hundreds of submissions. They read one from Mime, and they all live happily ever after, and with matching keychains to boot. Now, if there's one thing that I don't like about this chapter, is absolutely nothing. Alright, let's actually try to tackle things a bit unbiased. There's one major complaint that I've seen on the series. The jokes aren't that funny. Here's the thing. They're not. They're not funny. I'm not sure if they're just not even funny, or if it's the problem of translating Japanese jokes that just don't translate well. And look, I trust David Evelyn's translations with Your Mother's Life, but even a perfect translation of these jokes will always face the problem. Some of them require context of Gen Z Japanese culture, which we don't have. One of the jokes requires the knowledge of the band Official Ige Dandism, which is song reference has over 300 million listens on Spotify, but me, the Westerner that I am, had never heard of it. And I am the kind of music listener that has whatever the fuck this is that I got from being in a special event at a specific time on a specific place physically to pre-order a specific album by Bon Iver. So you must understand that when it comes to music and bands and knowledge of music and bands, I have no life. But honestly, just looking at the jokes themselves, I generally believe a lot of them are just bad, and I think that's fine. There are two main kinds of jokes in this chapter, and neither of them felt like they actually needed to be funny. The first kind of jokes is the ones that Mizu throws at Mime. These are the ones that I feel like mostly suffer from relying on puns or pop culture, but the thing about these jokes is that I don't think their main point is to be funny. These jokes work less as jokes to actually make you laugh, but more as a vehicle for you to understand Mizu as a character and the relationship between her and Mime. It shows that they are close, and honestly, I think it's cute. I actually relate to her a bit because I too am constantly teasing my wife with stupid jokes after stupid jokes after stupid jokes just to hear her groan and roll her eyes and smirk a bit, and she will tell you that 99% of the jokes aren't funny. The fact that they are not funny is the joke itself. It's honestly even part of what I do here. I've done a bunch of jokes in this video alone, and they really are not that funny. But it's part of the charm of being here with me. It's a connection that we're making, hopefully. That or I made just a bunch of you click off, but you know, it's life. Now the second kind of joke is the radio show jokes. These are the central thing of the manga in the same way that music is the central thing of Beck or PvP. So I can see the argument that these should be funny. But should they? The jokes themselves seem to belong to bad pun contests or something like Whose Line Is It Anyways? If you've seen that show, or especially if you've seen segments of that show that aren't just cherry-picked, you'll realize that a lot of the jokes are not that funny. But the show as a whole is, and the bad jokes are part of it. They build the vibe, the exact kind of vibe that you'd expect from a comedy improv show airing at 3 AM on a weekday on radio in 2025. And before telling you, well, maybe the manga happens in like the 80s, it does not, because not only are the bands that it mentions recent, they also use wireless headphones. This is happening in current time. It's a late night week radio show. It's gonna have bad jokes, and that's gonna be part of the vibe that the 30-year-old dude whose shift ended at 2 AM and they're driving back home on an empty highway needs and wants. The jokes being bad is believable, but I think the main thing of this series, above all else, is that this is a manga about comedy. But it's not a comedy manga, it's not a gag manga. You can tune out the jokes and still enjoy and appreciate what the manga is doing in ways that things like Miroboko or Knight's Prison just can't, because the entire thing is the jokes. That's not the soul or the body of someone Hertz. So now that we tackled that topic, let's talk about the things I liked about the manga. The relationship between the two main characters is kind of unique in this romcom setting. It's very often that we start with the main character meeting the love interest for the first time, and it makes sense, but I really like the fact that we start with such a strong connection from the get-go. I think it's one of the things that made the duo in Missions to Grow Family, for example, work as well as they do. These two really care for each other, and you can tell that. More importantly, you can actually tell that Mizu has already some feelings for Mime, and she knows Mime has feelings for her back. Throughout this chapter, she seems to actively and consciously be using this as a source of motivation for Mime to pursue his dreams. And we see that in the end when she tells him to surpass her, when she literally said that she won't fall in love with anyone less funny than her. She knows what she's doing. Now, a lot of people are saying that this manga isn't like other weekly Shonen Jump manga, and I gotta agree. The entire thing is very chill, it's very soft. I think the deadpan delivery of Mizu, the fact that this isn't quite a pure comedy manga, and the fact that the art style is so cute, so bubbly and amazing, it all builds up to a more relaxed vibe than you'd expect, and that isn't very common from weekly Shonen Jump manga. If I would look at all the titles from weekly Shonen Jump manga that I've read, which is close to 150 titles, I'd say the ones that I think are similar in vibe are Redragon and maybe, just maybe, Psychos. Looking at these two, it's hard to say how this manga is gonna go. Redragon was a massive success that was only hindered due to the poor health of its author. But on the other hand, Psychos never really got its footing, and it got cancelled pretty early, even though I think it was a pretty decent series. So far, it seems that people like Someone Hertz, which is good, but I think the main problem that this manga is going to face isn't being on Jump, but rather the competition that already has on the magazine. For how unique Someone Hertz feels as a rom-com manga, Blue Box already fits the bill as the cute, softer rom-com manga of the magazine, and it's gonna be really hard for Someone Hertz to actually beat Blue Box. That is one of the biggest titles in the magazine right now. And Imiden is also a thing, and while it is more of a traditional basic harem rom-com, it's still nonetheless a second rom-com in the magazine that isn't doing all that bad, at least last I checked. This is scary because I can't see a space for Someone Hertz, and I'm free and happy to be proven wrong, but I legitimately don't remember Jump ever having 3 successful rom-coms coexisting at the same time. I think even having 2 is not really that common. I really do hope this one succeeds, because when you read Shonen Jump series all the time, it is easy to just get desensitized to the cancellation of most of them. I expect them to be cancelled, I assume them to be cancelled, and over time I've learned to enjoy the series even with this reality looming by. But occasionally I get that one series that awakens that spirit in me, that gives me this irrational need to see this manga survive and live a long, good serialization, and this is one of them, so let's hope that it does survive. I actually interviewed the translation team for this manga back when they started working on Mama Yuyu, so if you want to see that, then click the video on the left, and if you want to see all my first thoughts on all the new weekly Shonen Jump series, click the playlist on the right, and subscribe for any future ones. And if you watched till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.